That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Left, feet left.
What the hell was that?
Oh, yeah! What the fuck are you talking about?
What's up, guys? Wednesday night edition, not the normal Tuesday night edition here of Lazy Booking, coming at you live on a2dradio.com. I am Chrome, joined by Andy, joined by Jeff. Happy to welcome our special guest this week, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, multiple-time World Heavyweight Champion all over the place, Mr. Nick Aldis. Nick, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're really, really excited. We're going to talk to the NWA World Champion, Nick Aldis, tonight, as well as we'll talk about a couple of points and notes from some of the programming around wrestling over this last week. But first, we want to make sure we pay our bills and show some love to our sponsors. First and foremost, tough time for people right now. A lot of us deal with, us or our family members are dealing with issues with depression, issues with addiction, issues, mental health, and whatnot. We are happy here at A2D Radio to back and support the Counseling Center and Sunrise Detox. So, guys, if yourself or anybody that you know needs an outlet to reach out to, please reach out. Dial that number, 856-651-8117. Again, 856-651-8117. Sunrise Detox. Please hit them up. Also by our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal at Specialized Physical Therapy in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can find him on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Any aches, pains, body issues that you're having, please hit up the doctor. No appointment necessary, and he will take care of you. Also, guys, All Campus OC. You guys know a couple weeks ago, Ocean City Boardwalk, New Jersey, massive fire, a number of damage of businesses and damages were suffered by a lot of people, including one of our sponsors and good friends, All Campus OC. So if you guys can, please donate to the GoFundMe that's been going on. If you can't donate, that's okay. Just share it. If you share it, the more people see it, the more opportunity there is. We appreciate you guys so much. But our topic of conversation today, we're going to talk to the NWA World Champion. And we always do a poll question, Nick, and we want to get your insight on this. So our poll question this week is: working relationships between different wrestling companies is best for pro wrestling. Agree or disagree? Now, I actually know that you have sort of spoken on this before. I know at the time, the tail end of your Impact TNA run, you had made comments about, how much sense it makes for different people to work together, or having different options for you to be able to go out and work amongst companies. And now seeing with the company that you work for, NWA, and we're seeing some of those stars and those titles featured on AEW and other companies working together. Would you agree or disagree that this is actually what's best for the pro wrestling business?
I'd strongly agree, and I would say that anyone can go back and listen to any interviews I've given over the last 3 or 4 years where I've basically predicted that this would be the future of the industry. That after and look, it's not anything new. It's been going on for, it's happened for decades, going back to obviously the territories and, the NWA in its original form and concept was essentially a culmination of this very mentality of, hey, we need a special attraction for our big show in a couple of weeks. Like, hey, let's call up somebody, let's call up a promoter in another area and see if we can get so and so, and they will go, okay, yeah, give us so and so, and then we'll give you a couple of dates on this guy, and so it's not anything new. It's just become more rare given the way that the landscape of the industry's changed, in that obviously now, with everything going national and international and now online, there's this sort of a territorial sort of mindset, where wrestling companies who are looking to be serious players, who have got, who are talking about serious investment in the millions, feel this overwhelming pressure to sign guys to contracts and have their own roster of talent, and they're theirs and theirs alone, and that's their unique selling point. And obviously that's understandable, because talent is what drives the business, and it might do some folks in the wrestling industry good to remember that, that without the talent there is no industry. But so in that respect, I completely understand the idea that you have to have your own talent that are exclusive to you, as that's what you're selling, right? When you come to a blah 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 show, you get to see this person, that person, that person. This is the only place you get to see them. Fine, totally understand that, but it doesn't mean that there aren't matchups that people want to see. And the reality is that once you establish sort of top performers with certain brands, naturally you're going to exhaust the possibilities of who they can wrestle to draw money, to draw interest. So then you start looking outside your own boundaries, and the audience now, and again, because of the hyper connected world we live in now, it's very easy for that fan sentiment to penetrate the conversation in the industry. So it's like, we really want to see the top guy of this company wrestle the top guy of that company. Well, hey, there's no reason technically why it can't happen. You just need to figure out the business deal. It's no different to boxing, where boxers will sign with a certain promoter. So in other words, like, okay, if that guy's going to fight, it means this guy's going to promote it. It's really the same principle. And I just think that what's happened is the understanding of that principle has been compromised over the years because of like the Monday Night Wars and this sort of promotional war thing, and it's because there's this idea that we have to steal talent away, and this talent has to like want to leave, and it's created this and a lot of the this sort of insatiable appetite that the wrestling audience online has for gossip and like controversy and sort of burning bridges when someone leaves a company and stuff. That the reality is like all we're really looking to do is find the matchups that people are that really want to pay to see. And okay, if that matchup happens to involve two guys who are under contract to two different organizations, then it just means that those two organizations need to put their heads together and make it happen. We've shown that we can do it. We did it with Cody. We did it with Marty with Ring of Honor, and more recently, Billy has done it with Tony with AEW with Thunder Rosa. So it's like it can be done. It comes down to I touched on this in another interview I did recently, in that you can't have all the best performers be under contract to the same organization, right? Like, because there are more than two people that deserve to be in the main event. And if you have a roster full of guys who can carry a main event, ultimately what's going to happen is some of those guys don't get to be the main event. So then eventually the narrative starts to become, oh, that person's being wasted, and oh, they're underutilizing that person, or they're underrated or underpushed, or whatever word you want to use. And suddenly that person's value is being kind of diminished through no fault of their own, and so in many ways I sort of see it as a necessary element of the business. Because so take me for example, like, sure, I'm the standard bearer for my brand, right, for the NWA, especially as the world's champion, but part of the way that we've been able to build that value in my brand and therefore in the brand that I represent is the fact that I've gone and defended the title against top guys from other promotions, right? But if I'd have if I'd have only ever stuck to within the parameters of the people that we had available to us at the NWA, it'd be a pretty short list. It'd be pretty boring. And when you talk about my sort of run with the title, you know, the main names that pop up as far as like my best title matches and the most memorable title matches, you know, you're talking about Cody, Tim Storm, Marty Scurll, you know, like, so Tim is the only one who's an NWA guy, you know, so it's like, and I've always felt like it can be done. And the main reason is that while it may not be a proven theory in the real world, in wrestling, trickle down economics is the real thing. Like, there's always going to be certain guys who are pulling the wagon, sort of as far as driving the most interest, you know, in any particular show or brand. And for the overall health of the industry on an economic level, if you want to be able to present the strongest main event attraction that you can, because everyone else benefits as a result. Because if there's more money coming in and more eyeballs on it, then more guys get a chance to shine in front of a bigger audience, so they then get the chance to become main eventers themselves. That's how the industry works. That's how it's always worked. That's how it will always work.
Yeah, and you know, I think you make a lot of spot on points, because you know, a lot of what we see, and we're almost programmed to feel a certain way, at least this generation now, is, you know, it's the whole please me now society that we're in as well. So if there's only two guys at the top, everybody's charging for that guy to get to the top, but as soon as they do, then they're shoved down our throats, and look at all the guys that are being wasted, or the ladies that are being wasted, and it becomes this like vicious cycle of, you know, build them up to break them down. And like you had mentioned, you know, when you go back to those territory days, and I mean, back then, you know, Ric Flair could go out and wrestle in other regions of the country. And, you know, you didn't have to worry about if you were going to damage the brand. You know, these guys would go out and do a 60-minute Broadway to a no contest then, and still, like you said, pack the house and bring in a ton of money. And
Right.
I know for myself, I'm a wrestling purist. I really appreciate seeing, you know, the Thunder Rosa showing up with your title on AEW's programming, Kenny Omega showing up over at Impact Wrestling. I've seen you show up at House of Hardcore, watching that whole feud between you and Marty Scurll.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff is, like you said, a lot of that is dream matches that people, you know, we've been so programmed for so many years to see, you know, just your guys. You know, it was just Hogan and Warrior, and then eventually Savage might get a shot. But it is very, very relieving to see at least a hint of that old territorial day kind of come back. And I hope that it continues. So
I think it's important to remember as well that wrestlers are independent contractors, and this whole sort of premise of like so and so has signed with, you know, the WWE or with the NWA or with AEW or whatever is really only been a thing in the last like 25 years. Like, even like really for me, the first situation I remember witnessing where they really made any kind of reference or point to the idea that a wrestler was here who had come from another sort of wrestling organization was when Flair jumped to WWF in '92. Like, that was the first time I'm sure there are others, but like for me as a fan, that was the first time I even remember sort of thinking about it. Like, I would see, you know, certain wrestlers, and then they would disappear, and I would be, you know what I mean? It was, you know, I wouldn't even notice as a kid. And then, and then I would turn on WCW, you know, a few weeks later, and Rick Rude's in WCW now, you know, whatever. It was like, I thought of them as individual guys. Like I wasn't like it's only this sort of, again, this fascination that's developed with where guys are signing and like their employment status and are they happy or unhappy and what did they have for lunch? You know, it's just like it's a massive distraction for me, and honestly, it kind of plays into the hands of wrestling companies, because it's like, if you treat the wrestlers like individuals, you know, if you think of every wrestler as an individual, like you think Harley Race walked around going like, you know, oh, I'm the NW. It's like he was a world champion. In his mind, he's like, I'm the best wrestler in the world. I'm Harley Race. You know, he wasn't sitting there like airing his dirty laundry about like what his contract negotiations were like. Stuff. He did everything on a handshake. You know, so it's like, I think that if we one of the things that we sort of stumbled on, but when we first started doing the 10 pounds of gold series, was what I call the prize fight approach to pro wrestling, which was like, this is, and it's funny because, you know, when you look at some of the issues that the NWA encountered over the last year, it's kind of like it rings true what I said at the time. And this was like 3.5 years ago. But I said, okay, to Billy, I was like, you could go out and buy a ring and get a bunch of wrestlers and get a building and get a bunch of cameras and shoot a show, but what's going to be different about it? Who's going to give a shit, right? Or you could, you know, at the time there was this sort of 12 to 15 sort of indie guys who were sort of the top guys on the independents. Like, yeah, you could go out and you could book Brian Cage and Willie Mack and, you know, the Cody or this guy or that, you know, whatever, right? So yeah, you could do that, but what's going to be different other than the fact that you've got a different logo on, you know, at the top of the page, right? Like, so which is, you know, and through that conversation, and then through sort of Billy's vision for what he saw for the brand and my vision for what I saw for, you know, for how I wanted to be presented and how I wanted to present pro wrestling in a different way, the 10 pounds of gold series was born. Because I said, you know, there's so much wrestling. God, you can turn on any device any day of the week and see like a really good pro wrestling match, at least from a physical execution standpoint. But I can't really, you know, there's not really any like, there's not a lot of angles that are making me go, oh, I can't wait to see that one. You know, I can't wait to see this thing finally play out, because it's so the turnover is so quick. And again, this is not an indictment of any of my contemporaries in the industry or any of the companies, because, you know, WWE is making more money than ever. You know, AEW's in a strong position. Obviously, had a tremendous sort of head start on the rest of us in terms of their sort of financial position and their relationships with networks and things like that. But they're in a good position. So they have a responsibility to provide, you know, content on a regular basis, right? But we didn't. Yeah. So while, again, to your point of, you know, fans being so conditioned to wanting something right now and give me this match right now and I want to give me this pay-per-view and you know, it's like we didn't present them anything that made them even really understand what they were seeing. So then the intrigue was there, because they started going, what is this? Like, what am I seeing? Oh wait, we're just literally talking about one match. Yep, just one match. This is it. The world title. It's this guy and this guy. Okay, cool. Well, that was only 10 minutes. All right, cool. You know, it was like we gave you little taster samples, you know, before we were like, hey, do you want to try out our all-you-can-eat buffet? It was like, no, we just, you know, just try this. You'll like it. Try, you know, oh, hey, I do kind of like that. Oh, that was kind of cool. It was kind of interesting. It was kind of old school. Oh, it's kind of different. It was. People love to say old school about us, but like in a lot of ways, we were also super innovative. You know, it's like that's kind of been the kind of paradox of the NWA from the beginning. Is that like we're traditional values, but with innovative modern delivery, Like we present things and again, and I don't mind that it's happened, but if you look closely, quite a lot of promotions in the last few years have borrowed quite a lot from what we did, and like, because they started realizing, okay, there's some really effective stuff happening here. But ours came out of necessity in the sense that while other people might look at what we did, oh, you guys don't have a roster, and oh, you guys don't have a show, and you guys don't have a blah, blah, blah. But no, but we also don't have this overwhelming pressure to get a rating every week. So we're not throwing away money by giving away pay-per-view stuff on free TV because we don't have to. Mm-hmm. So like, it's funny, if I had $1 for every time somebody said, go to AEW or go to WWE, like it's up to me for one thing, but like, or you should wrestle this guy, okay.
Might be a little hard.
But the funny thing is that, like, I'm in a very good position financially, but it's because this company doesn't have anywhere near the level of overheads that a company operating at that level does. And people don't sort of compute those economics, right? In that, like, yeah, but I'm in a position where if I can deliver like 3 or 4 solid pay-per-views, like I've made back the money that they've spent on me. You know what I mean? Like, whereas, if you've got a company that's got to spend, millions every month on their payroll and their production and everything else, it's like now you're in a tremendous amount of pressure to deliver. So it's like there's there are different economic structures here. Like I've always looked at the NWA as we want to be In-N-Out Burger, right? Like if WWE is McDonald's and AEW is, pick another one, Burger King, whatever, right? Whatever you want to do. We want to be In-N-Out Burger, where it's like you can't get In-N-Out Burger you can't get it as easily as you can get the other ones. It's not everywhere you look. It's not in your face, and they don't have but it has a reputation of, like, when you can get it, it's special. Like it's simple and it's effective, but it's special and it's and it's undeniable, right? That's always been the way that I want us to be perceived in the market.
Yeah, and I mean, you used the perfect word, when you said not old school, but traditional. And I've almost equated you guys, when I think of, maybe it's a little extreme of an example, but I always look at like Bruno Mars, right? And what I like about Bruno Mars and why I find him to be a really entertaining guy is he is traditional in, like, a lot of his presentation is almost like an old school Motown kind of a feel, but he brings an innovativeness to it that presents that same traditional value to a new generation in a way that's exciting and different, and it can appeal to, the 70 or 80-year-olds or 60-year-olds who were around for Motown, and it can appeal to the younger generation as well. So I couldn't agree with you more.
That's a great analogy, and I like that. I might steal that because I get all the time, people who you see the trolls who have clearly, like, never actually watched the show or watched me, and they go, "Who's this guy trying to be Ric Flair?" And it's like, but then you get the people who have watched the show and they're like I can't tell if he's like Nick Bockwinkel or if he's like Harley Race or if he's like Ric Flair or if he's like, by the way, all huge compliments to me. Like, it's not like it's not a bad place to be when you're being, mentioned in those same. But to your point, like, yes, I want to make you think of those people, like, with little hints here and there, because I've borrowed little bits from all of those guys, and I've borrowed a bunch of stuff from guys in the modern era. I borrowed a little bit from Triple H. I borrowed a little bit from Scott Hall. I borrowed a little bit from Sting. It's like, so but it's more about the fact that maybe they have to face the fact that maybe I'm drumming up, maybe I'm making them feel the same way they felt when they saw those guys.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's like, but you know, we have a tendency to have sort of generational kind of rose-tinted glasses. Like, no one will ever be better than like my favorite era, but we all do that. You know, like it was like, oh, this guy's no Bret Hart. You know, like that's the way I look at stuff. But it's just because Bret Hart was my hero. You know, when I was a kid, I thought Bret Hart was the coolest guy in the world. So it's like no one's ever really truly going to measure up to Bret to me. You know, or to like Rock or Austin or Hunter, you know what I mean? Like, because that's my generation of guys.
Yeah. Andy?
So I was in researching for tonight, I stumbled across the fact that you were a part of Gladiators back in 2008, 2009. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching, they do this like vignette on you. How much of Gladiators and that character that you built in there became the early stages of who you were in wrestling?
Well, I guess some, but see, I would say that the Gladiators character was a continuation of the wrestling character that I was already doing, because I was already a full-time wrestler by the time I got Gladiators. You know, I was talking to Austin Idol earlier, funnily enough, and I was saying, you know, I really, in many ways, I was sort of one of the last people who got the chance to sort of come up in a traditional kind of almost like a territory, because I broke in with the Knight family, with Paige's parents, and you know, did some shows for them. But when I went full time, it was because I dotted around a few independent shows in England, and people had said, you know, you need to go work for Brian Dixon. Brian Dixon was like the #1 promoter in Europe. He was the #1 promoter in the UK, and at the time, he had the contract for Butlins, and he had probably 200 shows booked in regular venues, in like theaters and, you know, town hall type venues. So you could go full time for Brian, and I mean, I must have wrestled 250 dates my first year.
Oh wow!
You know, I was wrestling almost every day. You know, most of the time it was 6 days a week, Mondays off. So it was like, and I, you know, really took that for granted until I went to Harley's camp and got to talking to some of the, you know, gravitated to the other guys there who I could tell were serious, like Joe Hennig, Sam Shaw, who's now Dexter Loomis in NXT, you know, and a few other guys. And when we were talking about, like, they were talking about what they were doing for a regular job and, you know, whatever, or what they would, you know, how much they were able to wrestle. And I was like, well, I took time off from wrestling to come to this camp. And they couldn't believe it. You know, they were, wait, you wrestled like every day? And I said, pretty much, you know, like, so as long as, you know, Brian books me, it was literally like the old school, like, you know, Brian would send you your dates, like usually about 3 or 4 weeks in advance. You would sort of get, okay, here's your dates for the next 3 weeks, you know, and that would be it. So it was like very much that sort of old school territory thing. So it's like, I had already sort of got comfortable with don't get me wrong, I was very unrefined at that point because I was only like 21 years old, but I already had a sort of somewhat of a kind of go-to heel persona. That's how I got the gig for Gladiators, because when I went to the auditions, like I did pretty well in the physical stuff, in the physical challenges and everything, but it was when they stuck a camera in our face and got us to talk was when I stood out, because a lot of the guys there looked great, but then they put a camera in front of them and they just died. You know, they didn't know what to do. Whereas I just, you know, when you're wrestling 6 days a week and sometimes wrestling twice a day, it's like you end up having sort of generic go-do promos sort of just in your head. Like you don't even have to, they're just there. It's like the same one over and over again, you know? And so I just reeled off one of those. It was, you know, it was real like wrestling 101 stuff. Like, when I look out in this audience and I see the teeth on this guy and the hair on this guy, you know, I'm glad that I live in so-and-so, you know, where I don't have to see. It's just real typical wrestling 101 stuff. But these TV producers were just like, oh, this is incredible. That's exactly what we want, you know, like. And the executive producer was just like, that's what I want. Do that every show. You know, I was just like, oh, shit, easy, no problem. So it was like that's how I ended up sort of being this sort of standout guy on the show, because they would just be like, what's he going to say next? And it was all just wrestling 101. I'm sure any wrestling fans who saw it just went, oh God, these promos are so like generic. But to anyone else, they were just like, I remember like the producers and like the other cast members and stuff would just go like, where do you come up with this stuff? And I would just go, pro wrestling. Do you know what I mean? It was like, but yeah, so it yes, they fed each other, but really, it was, yeah, like I was just being my pro wrestling character, and then just doing shoot events. So it was just like, it was a win-win, because it didn't even matter if I lost, because like if I lost, I could just claim that the referee cheated, or whatever. So it was a win-win, really.
Very cool.
Jeff?
Nick, I would say you have wrestled at quite a few companies over your long wrestling career, being the Global Force Global Champion, TNA World Champion, currently the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. What does that do for your confidence level for you in that moment when you win these titles, for yourself as a performer and as a wrestler? Like, say, hey, look, this company believes in me. They believe me as the face of their company. And you sort of, obviously you reach the top. I would say just what's going through your mind, and what goes through for you when being at the top of these companies?
That's a good question. I think that it's varied. When I got the word that I was going to get the strap at TNA, it was more of a it was gratifying in the sense that I had renegotiated my contract like earlier that year, I think, and while it certainly was not the primary reason for staying, because you've always got to put your money first. It's the wrestling business. There was a small part of me that, one of the factors that did play into my thinking was I had this feeling at that point that I said, I was like, I think if I stay here, I could go all the way and be the world champion. And like I said, not that was like the main sort of factor in my decision, but there was an element of pride to it, in the sense that like now I kind of wanted to see it through to the end. Like I had sort of, because, I had come into that company with, I was so green. I had so much heat not heat, that's not the right word, but, I didn't have any, I wasn't really respected by the locker room, because they just saw me as this guy that Dixie, and again, this was a perfect example of perception, in wrestling being reality. Is that like most of these guys had no idea that I was a full-time pro wrestler. They because there was so much sort of civil war and unrest going on in TNA at that point, that immediately the narrative got to, oh God, this guy's some goof off a TV show that Dixie fell in love with, so now she's going to put him on the show, and that became the narrative about me. And it was only when Doug Williams came in that Doug was like, no, this guy's a wrestler. He's one of the boys, kind of thing. He's one of, but so I had to battle against a lot of that kind of stuff, and not just with the talent either. I mean, with the guys running with the guy at different times running creative and stuff like that. They all had this sort of image of me that I was something else. So I had worked through every spot on the card. I'd been in dark matches. I'd been on explosions. I'd been not booked at all. I'd been sort of jobbed out. I'd done everything. Tag titles, mid-card runs, that kind of, and it was like, I felt like, and then that year, you could feel the people sort of turning, and feel like people start going like, we're getting behind this guy. We're ready to see, not like I was a huge baby face, but you could feel the people sort of saying like, we're ready for this guy to be seen in that way, and then with and a lot of it, and this is again, I have to make this point that it was also a loyalty thing. I am a loyal guy. Like, I get defensive when I hear people sort of run down Dixie all the time, because it's like, Dixie put her money where her mouth is. You can say what you want about her, but she went for it. You know what I mean? Like, it takes zero balls to sit behind a computer, or to, you know, to sit back, or to take someone else's money and then bury them. You know what I mean? It takes serious balls to put your own money up, no matter how much of it you have, right? No matter how wealthy you may be, it takes balls to put your own money up. It takes no balls to take someone else's money, you know, like a lot of people did there. And then as soon as they leave, just like shit on her, you know, oh, she don't know what she's doing. She don't know what she's talking about. She's like, well, why didn't you say something then? You know, why didn't you try to help when you were in there? Right, instead of just happy to take the check and then burn the bridge on the way out. You know, like I have every respect for that. So I took a lot of pride in sort of in the loyalty factor, and also the fact that Sting had spoken up for me and said, I believe in this guy. You know, like this guy reminds me of me. This guy reminds me of the guys that I came up in my era. You know, and so I wanted to prove Steve right, you know. So it was like there was a lot of that, and I just, you know, the difference between, obviously the Global Force thing was just kind of like it never really got off the ground. So it was nice. It was proud. It was nice to think like, wow, Jeff could have picked anyone and he picked me. You know, that's a cool feeling. And then obviously with the NWA. It's different now. It's a different level of pride, because it's not just a case of Billy Corgan, you know, invested a load of money into a wrestling promotion and he decided to go with me as the face of the company and the world champion. Because you're also having this responsibility of trying, you know, for me it was to try and restore the lineage and the legacy of the championship, the oldest championship. Yeah. And to have Harley Race, you know, and Dory Funk Jr., you know, Jim Ross, like, you know, Jerry Briscoe, you know, these different guys, you know, Austin Idol all endorse me and say, this guy, you know, this guy's the world champion. This guy, you know, this guy's the real deal. That's the most important thing to me. That's the most prideful part for me. And, you know, the difference now between, you know, being the world champion now and
we had Nikita Koloff on our show a couple of times, actually. He's been a friend of the show. Same thing. When we talked about the revival of the NWA about a year and a half ago, he spoke very highly of the contribution. And recently he did a Road Warrior Animal show with us. Spoke very highly of your contributions to the NWA and the company in general as well. So just to tribute to the work that you and the company are putting in.
Right. And I think that's the difference, is that now it's like a lot of the responsibility falls on my shoulders, like for better or for worse. Whereas in TNA, it was kind of like, I always felt like I was a bit of an experiment. You know, like they never really fully went, like they didn't treat me the same way they treated, you know, Bully Ray with the title, you know, or like Bully Ray could walk in and say, I don't want to do it like this, I want to do it like that. And he'd be in the production meetings and, you know, helping book and stuff. And it's like, you know, with me, it was like, I still was just showing up and being told, right, like, do it like this, you know, and have no real sort of flexibility on, you know, on my own input. And it's like, to me, if you're the world champion, you know, if you can't have input by the time you're the world champion, then what's the point? You know, whereas here it's like, I'll fall on my sword here. You know what I mean? If something goes well, like, yeah, I'll take the fair amount of credit. But if something goes badly, I will take all the blame, you know? So it's like, and fortunately, you know, the good has far outweighed the bad. And I think that my body of work speaks for itself in that regard, because, you know, people aren't bringing up my TNA matches to me now. When I do interviews, people aren't going, take us back through, your TNA main event with Jeff Hardy, and can think about the names that were there when I was, you know what I mean? Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle, Sting, AJ Styles. It's like, but people don't bring that up with me. They go, take me through your match with Cody, take me through your match with Tim Storm, your match with Marty Scurll, like that's what they want to hear about. So that's a testament to what I've been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe you had Sting's last match in Impact or TNA, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, though. It's like Steve would have been happy to do. Like Steve had done the honors for me, clean in the middle, like 3 months before. So it's like. If we'd have had it, if we'd have been able to do it the way that we wanted to do it, it would have been totally different. But it was always someone there who, it was always like whoever was running the creative and stuff had to show that they're not a pussy. They have to do, like, you're going to do what I say, like I'm not going to let the wrestlers push me around. So then it would be like, so you're going to do my terrible idea. They'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like Billy doesn't have that. Billy's kind of like, yeah, he has certain things that he's like, I'm really behind this idea. I really want to do this. But when it comes to the world title and he'll say, okay, champ, like, where do you want it? Like, where are you seeing this going next? Who do you want to, like, who's the next guy in line for a title shot? Who are we thinking? You know what I mean? Like, it's we, not me. You know what I mean? He uses the phrase a lot, and I've heard it in interviews and stuff. He says, working with Nick, not Nick works for me, which is technically true. Like I would, you know what I mean? Like let's call a spade a spade. He's the boss, but it's like he phrases it as, working with Nick. Like that's the way he sees it. And that's it's one of the cool things about it.
Yeah. I have to ask, this is probably the most basic question, but I want to ask it because I feel like it's you're so good at both that I'm actually really intrigued. Do you like working as a heel or a face better? I know my preference, but
heel.
Not even a hesitation.
I mean, listen. It's kind of you to say that I'm good at both, but let's be real. Like I'm a heel to the core. I mean, it's like. I think, what we've seen develop for me over the last couple of years is that I was talking to Sean Waltman about this, and it was like it had been brought up, like about, is he a heel or a babyface? He goes, he's the world champion. Like, you have to beat him. That's it. Like, it's whatever you want it to be on that night, and it's like I really love like I got to do it again recently for the first time in ages, and it felt fantastic. I went to Omaha, Nebraska, and wrestled a very, very talented, very capable guy called Jason Strife, who doesn't have a huge profile, well known in that area. Right. And it's like, God, if that isn't the essence of what the NWA champion is supposed to do, right? Like we had those people on their feet at the end of that show, you know what I mean? At the end of that match, like there were times where they really felt like he might take the title. And like, that's my objective. Like everywhere I go, that's my job. And again, people on the outside looking in, who haven't really paid any attention, but still feel qualified to make a comment, might say like, oh God, why has he been champion for so long? And it's like, but that's why. Because like at this point in time, like this is not my ego talking. This is I genuinely believe this. At this point in time, like I do that better than anybody at the moment, of making you believe, that you're the best guy in your local area may just be the guy to pull the sword out of the stone. Yeah. I love doing that. Now, does it mean I'm a heel? Like, kind of, but it's more of the fact that like I'm the final boss. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like if you wanted to be a bad guy, great, but I'm the world champion. You know, now on NWA Power, it's a different story. You know, with based on it, but again, to me, I always feel like when you look at the best TV shows, you know, many of the characters are heels or baby faces dependent on who they are interacting with and dependent on the circumstances that present themselves at that point in time. This isn't me trying to say that no one should be a heel or baby face. Like, I absolutely believe in those dynamics, and that's what draws money. But for certain characters, like, you know, people in certain positions, and I think the world champion is one of them, you can have a bit of that fluidity depending on what the situation is. So, like, for example, when we were doing the, I had been the world champion, you know, and I was received like a babyface when we first started doing the show, because there was such a genuine affection for the show, and such a, like, people, you know, our fans were so, we have such, you know, ridiculously great fans that they were just, you know, I can't tell you what the energy was like on that first season of Power. Like, when everybody walked into that room and saw it done up the way it was, and the show was shot the way it was and everything, I mean, those people were just electric. And, like, you know, in their mind, it's not like, it's not 100% true, but it's not 100% false either. But to a lot of them, you know, a lot of that was thanks to me. Like, we, you know, that I'd help get us there. You know, it's down to a lot of people. It's down to a lot of things. But, you know, from a representative standpoint, it's like, you know, and so my character on the show will say, this is all because of me, you know. So that's kind of a heel tendency, but there's elements of truth to it. So then when we had sort of outsiders invading from Ring of Honor, like Flip Gordon or Marty or Brody King or whatever, so it's like, I'm going to, you know, to those fans, like, they want me to, you know, they're heels. So, you know what I mean? So there can be situations where there's some fluidity. As long as they feel strongly one way or another, that's the only thing that matters.
Real quick before Andy asks his question too, you actually, this is actually a question that was sent in to us, so you transitioned perfectly. You talked about the final boss, right? So Jay Cardamone wanted me to ask you about Retromania. It's almost like, you know, you look at that, and that's like the homage to probably not just wrestling games. WrestleFest was one of the iconic arcade games in general. People who weren't wrestling fans played that game. And it's such a throwback to it, and you're almost like the Mike Tyson to Punch Out, and as in you're the champion in the game. Can you talk about what that whole experience is like, and kind of being given that highlight and spot in the game?
It's fantastic, and I when I was first approached about the game and the concept, it was kind of like, oh, that's cool. You know, and I understood that the timing was great as far as like when they explained it's gonna be a sequel to WrestleFest, and it's gonna be you know, very much of the same sort of graphics, and to your point, yes, like, I played that game in arcades. You know, before I was sort of a wrestling fan in the sense of I knew who everybody was, but it wasn't like I was watching every week and, you know, knew this. But that's a testament to the WWF branding, because I remember playing that game and knowing who everybody was. Like, oh, I'm going to be Earthquake, you know, I'm going to be this guy, I'm going to be the Big Boss Man, you know, whatever. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, you know, I've recorded some VOs for it and stuff like that, and they've just been such a joy to work with. And obviously the fact that they then entered into a larger kind of licensing agreement with the NWA, it was great timing for the company and for me. But yeah, to have like a whole mode, like 10 pounds of gold mode, that's kind of dedicated to me, but also what I've been able to build and you know, build with the NWA. Like, it's kind of it's proud on two levels. You know, one for me as a talent, but also to show like the power, you know, the power of what we've been able to accomplish with the brand in such a short period of time, that this game wanted to devote an entire kind of mode to this, you know, to what we've been doing as a brand and as a show. Like, the quest to chase for the 10 pounds of gold, and if you beat all these guys, you get a shot at the gold. It's like that's awesome, man. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah, we're really, really excited for it. Let's do one more round of questions, fellas. Andy, go ahead.
So we always ask, what's it like when you find out you're going to win a title, right? But I have to ask, and I don't know why we've never done this before, but what's it like when they say, okay, you're going to drop the title to, like Cody, for example, or somebody like that? What's going through your mind in that moment? And then when the match happens and it's done, what's the kind of feeling?
Well, it's interesting because while I obviously I'm very proud of the fact that I've been champion for a long time, and it's great to be the world champion. I also understand that the whole purpose of it is to, in this business, is eventually to build up to a point where at the right time with the biggest audience and the most money and the most opportune moment, is the switch happens and it's a huge moment in history. So losing to Cody, there was no shame in that. You know what I mean? It was like, we never even had a conversation about it. We just all knew that was the right thing to do. Like we had, obviously we had to kind of get a few things laid out, and agreed to sort of down the road, like because of, he's under contract to Ring of Honor. And then of course he left that to go to AEW. So obviously we had to sort of wrap things up. So we obviously, so it was all agreed on ahead of time, obviously. But, as far as the actual all-in event, all the way leading up to it, it was, I was very aware of like what we needed to do, because that was the story I was telling. I was Dolph Lundgren, you know what I mean? I was Ivan Drago. So it was like, that's great. Like, that's my role tonight. You know what I mean? Like, and when you do that right, I mean, there's no better feeling. I mean, shit, you go your whole career trying to get a moment like that. For me, the fact that we had those people, standing before we even touched, that was, for me, I always took that as the audience's kind of, I always felt like that was for an appreciation for me, because it was like everyone kind of collectively felt like we think we know where this is going, like we obviously wanted Cody to have that moment and win the belt, but I always felt like the bit at the beginning was more of a sort of tip of the hat to me of like, you've done something special here, you know what I mean? You've created something really incredible in such a short period of time. But that's, and afterwards, there's a little bit of like, not depression, that's too strong a word, but it's a little bit kind of like deflating. But I was busy. It's like I had other stuff to do. I had bookings right away, and and obviously we plugged pretty quickly straight into the build for the rematch, at NWA 70. So it wasn't like I was now, what do I do now? Now, to contrast that with, keep in mind, I knew that obviously weeks, months ahead of time. So it was like, the whole thing was planned out. That's the way it should be, because that's the way you do the best business. Because it's like, if everyone's on the same page, then everyone can do it the right way and do what needs to be done to give the fans the best moment. Now, contrast that with how I found out I was losing the belt at TNA. I show up that day at TV and I get pulled into an office. Oh, you're going to lose to Eric Young tonight. Oh, cool. Thanks. You know what I mean?
Nothing like short notice.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you not go walk around the rest of the day like feeling like shit? You just can't. Like, and I still felt like I gave EY a great moment. The one thing that no one can take away from me in my career is that whenever someone's beaten me for a world title, like it's been a thing. Like no one's ever been like, they remember the times where I've lost the title. And that's a testament to how well I carry it. And that's the whole point. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, if you can remember all the times that somebody dethroned you for the championship, then it just means that you were a strong enough king, right? That's kind of that's the way I look at it. So, yeah, it's when it's done right and everyone's on the same page, it's you just feel it's proud. It's a proud moment. You know, you feel like you've done the right thing. It's like, you know, you've played your part in an important sort of part of history.
Definitely. So Nick, you talked about some of your favorite matches. Now, before you hang up your boots, is there anyone who's your dream match that you want to wrestle before you call your career up, whenever that may be? But someone that you say that's the guy I want to wrestle before I hang it up.
Well, most, you know, at this point, you know, I was fortunate I got to wrestle, you know, Sting, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, you know, Samoa Joe. I think that today, and that's from talking from me as a fan of like guys who I never thought I would get to wrestle, you know. And but I think now, when I look at it, really most of the names that are left now are really WWE names. You know, it's like for me, I think Triple H would be the sort of the sort of pie in the sky kind of what if, you know, kind of match. I think that, you know, I think Randy Orton, same kind of thing. Like, God, can you imagine? That would be great, you know. And I think now, you know, especially in the last couple of years, like I've really sort of started to dig the idea that, like, I really, you know, I think, God, think of the story that I could tell with Roman, like, you know, I just did the contrast of characters and the contrast of personalities and looks and everything, but, you know, with the similar in age and, you know, similar in size and, you know, but totally different sort of backgrounds and different approaches and styles. It's just like, that's an intriguing matchup. But obviously these are all, you know, perfect world sort of scenarios. Not to say that they can't be, not to say that it couldn't happen. But again, it's like what we talked about earlier with the whole cross promotion thing. You know, do I really have to sign with WWE to make those matches happen? No, I don't think so. Like, I think there's no reason why we couldn't work out a special one-off. You know, you know who I'm pretty confident, based on conversations I've had with him, who at some point would love to have an NWA World Title match is Edge. Like, and you know, again, he's not someone who I thought that's not someone who I even thought was possible. But now, you know, now that he's back and he's, you know, kicking ass again, and he's like the top of the industry, you know, I know he would love to do it, and I would love to do it. So it's like, you never say never.
Yeah.
And you got my brain working on all those matches now, and how amazing those programs could be. My final question. You guys are what a lot of people consider a power couple, you and your wife, Mickie James. And I have to ask, A, how proud are you of the legacy that she has? I mean, you both have very proud legacies together. And what is it like working throughout the industry as, you know, almost being that recognized, one of the recognized power couples, but, you know, both just kind of being at the top of your game. And to follow with that too, how proud are you that throughout her career, she's left such a legacy that she's still contributing at a high level, both in ring and as well as advising the next level or the next generation.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, yeah, you nailed it. I mean, obviously immensely proud of her, you know, to have a baby at 35, considering that she had, you know, you have to remember, she had a run in WWE, had a run in TNA, and then we had a baby. And then she went back to WWE. You know, it wasn't like she was with WWE and then she got pregnant. So then it was like, oh, we kind of have to, I guess we have to bring her back. You know, they booked her for NXT for a one-off. She tore the house down with Asuka and showed everyone, like, you know, half of the roster, half of the women now who are like top names in the industry got into the industry because they wanted to be like her. You know, Sasha even said it like on a round table they did recently. Like Sasha literally went like, you know, you and Trish and Lita are the reason I got into the business. Like I wanted to be just like you. So I try to remind her of that.
Saying she wanted to have that moment with her.
Yeah, man. And look, there's a lot of matchups on the table there, I think, that could and should happen. You know, I think for me it's like, but you know, before she hangs it up, to me it's like they should absolutely tell that story of like, you know, multi-generational kind of clash with her and Sasha and Bailey and, you know, and Charlotte. But hey, you know, no one's asking me. But the yeah, look, the thing I take the most pride in as far as like the power couple thing is that over the years, she was way more well known than I was when we first got together. You know, so I was always well aware of the fact that I was going to have to work very hard to not just be known as like, oh, he's that guy that dates Mickie James, you know. So from on a personal level, I take pride in the fact that that's not, you know, the first thing people think of, you know, when my names grow up. Obviously, there's always going to be some who are, you know, if they only ever seen WWE and then they, you know, whatever. But like, you know, more power to you. Merry Christmas. But like, but you know, within the industry, it's like, no, you know, we're considered contemporaries. You know, and that's a difficult thing when you know when you know she's a Hall of Famer. She's a surefire Hall of Famer. So it's like and for us now, like our relationship is so much healthier. I think for the fact that we've both been able to continue to succeed and thrive in our own spaces. You know, so we can help each other rather than sort of be a burden to each other. Does that make sense? Because she can come home and, you know, and there's certain things, you know, that she needs to vent about with WWE because it's a high pressure situation. You know, oh, this happened, that happened, and I can sort of lend give her a view from 10,000 feet and say, well, it seems like this, or maybe, you know, maybe just, you know, take a day, think about it, talk to this guy, talk to that guy, you know, and conversely, you know, when we're in high pressure situations with the NWA and things are happening and stuff, like she can look at it from an outsider perspective and, you know, lend. So it's like we can borrow from each other's professional experiences. And the other thing too is that like we have, even though we've both been in the industry for a long time, she's been in it longer than me, and she has different experiences than I have, and I have different experiences. So it's like she can lend a lot of credibility to an opinion based on the fact that like she's been at WrestleMania, you know, she's been at the big shows, she's been at, you know, she's worked for Vince McMahon, you know what I mean, the greatest promoter of all time. But you know, she doesn't necessarily have as much experience of like building something up from scratch like I do. So it's like, so then, you know, in certain things I can say, well, you know, when we were doing this, you know, we kind of took this approach, and it's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. You know, so it's like, again, we can kind of borrow from each other's experiences, you know, and help each other out on a professional level.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. And again, like you said, it's almost like being able to have the same, have an insight, but from afar, from a distance, so that you're not too close to the situations with each other to where you know, your peripherals are kind of skewed. So, but Nick, this was an awesome hour, man. We really appreciate your time. Loving everything that you're doing with the NWA, and really, honestly, in professional wrestling in general. I'm a big fan. I was a fan of the Brutus Magnus days back in the day. to see everything.
So you were the one.
Yeah, that was it. That was that guy. But listen, to see everything that you've done, again, just for yourself personally, and honestly, to revive an amazing company like the NWA as the figure. I mean, Billy Corgan, all you guys have done an amazing job. But I know for us professional wrestling fans, we want to say thank you for the work that you do. And listen, stay safe, keep trucking along, and Have a great night. Good health
Yeah,
to
thank
you
you.
and Mickie and the rest of the family.
I appreciate that sentiment, guys, and I appreciate you guys being positive contributors to the industry. And we need you guys. So thank you for supporting the NWA, and we hopefully will have some good positive news about NWA Power coming very soon.
Awesome.
Exciting.
And
Thanks, guys.
And by the way, you're allowed. I'm going to give you permission to steal my Bruno Mars analogy. There, you're good.
Okay, got it.
You're stealing it
Thanks,
regardless, bro. Later.
Bye.
Bruno Mars.
Well,
dude?
guys, there you have it. That was a good
Hey, man,
analogy.
I didn't see you coming up with a better analogy.
That
I
is
think it
true.
worked.
Dude, that halftime show when I attended was horrible.
I don't know what to tell you, but listen, I mean, first and foremost, thank you to the NWA World Champion, Nick Aldis, for joining us.
Yes.
Awesome interview.
Great interview.
That might be the longest, by the way, of any of the interviews, or really in general, and most in-depth of a poll question that I really felt like took us in a lot of different directions that this conversation, I think, needed to go.
Everything I had went out the window. I was like, all right, well, time to figure out something new.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, Duke could talk. I would say between the three of us, we each only got 2 questions for an hour. I'd say he's in depth.
That's what I thought Chrome was going to go with. It was the longest to where none of us said a word.
and
I don't think I've ever heard the three of us this quiet.
And it's because, I mean, listen, he's so insightful, right?
Yeah.
You could see how he's grown from where he started to where he is now. And to be able to have this hour-long conversation with him, I think makes it pretty clear why a company like the NWA and Billy Corgan, who, by the way, and I wanted to mention this, but we didn't have a whole lot of time. Billy Corgan, when you hear the Smashing Pumpkins lead singer gets into pro wrestling, and this is before NWA, you kind of thought like, it's like Ted Turner getting into the wrestling business, right? In a sense of, how does this equate? Is he a guy who just has some money and he has a little extra time on his hands? Billy Corgan is a really smart guy, and clearly is a professional wrestling fan, knows the history of it, and the presentation that these guys have put together, and the intuitiveness to understand that having a guy like Nick is your figurehead, particularly in these early years, while you're trying to build this brand in a very different way than what AEW and WWE are doing. And he talked about it, where they're not throwing a ton of money at people, but yet NWA Power, they throw it on YouTube and people talk about it. They talk about it constantly when they're going on. It's a shame right now that they're not active. We're trying to get through this pandemic so they can kind of get back to status quo, but it's a testament. And I mean, that was so insightful to hear his perspective on things. And I mean, I was really thrilled with that interview, guys. And we really appreciate Nick joining us. And he really did it on last minute as well, because
he really did.
Yeah.
We didn't have a chance to really formally announce it. So we were supposed to have another guest, which would have been yesterday, our normal night. Unfortunately, they had to reschedule. And we happened to get in touch with Nick, and Nick said, "Hey, I'm happy to jump on you guys tomorrow and talk wrestling for an hour." So we were really excited to have him, and we thank him so much.
To get off work.
Hey, good job out of you. Well, we switched the night, yeah. But I guess I can announce that now. It's official. So
Do it.
First and foremost, next week, everybody already knows we have the living legend Larry Zbyszko. This upcoming Tuesday night, next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have a full, long, 1 hour live interview with Larry Zbyszko. And guess what? The hits keep coming after that. We hadn't announced it. We're going to announce it right now. I locked it in again while we're here. The guest we were supposed to have yesterday has rescheduled for the following Tuesday, 2/23, same time, 7:30 p.m. Former WWE, WWF women's champion, or diva. She was a diva women's champion, right?
Women's champion.
Women's champion, original GoDaddy girl. For all of our sports fans who are watching, who jump in, from the Super Bowl commercials. We just had the Super Bowl pass. Candice Michelle. Candice Michelle is going to join Lazy Booking in 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks. So she's excited to come on. We're really excited to have her, as well as, again, the living legend, Larry Zbyszko.
Hold on, get it right.
Stay tuned for more, guys, because we have more interviews coming.
Back up, get it right. WWE Hall of Famer, the living legend, Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, well, yes, you're right. WWE Hall of Famer Larry Zbyszko.
Because that would be your luck.
That's going to be.
Oh, I'm overly ecstatic for it, but that would be your luck. He'd be like randomly just watching us, and he's like, "This guy doesn't know I'm a WWE Hall of Famer," and you would get cooked next week.
I've talked to Larry.
Some of his interviews. I think you would get cooked.
I've talked to Larry. Well, first of all, I went to his Hall of Fame induction. I was there when he went into the Hall of Fame. Secondly, I've already talked to him a couple of times on the phone. Great talker, high energy, already started telling me some stories. Hilarious. Really, I'm telling you guys, that is going to be must see, can't miss. Again, thank you again. First of all, we've had a lot of guests on, okay? This is like we're on a run here now. We've had so many guests at this point, really over the last 6 or 7, well, really since the summertime. If you guys missed any of them, go back and check them out. We've had Ken Shamrock, Bill Alfonso, Nikita Koloff, Ted DiBiase, Bushwhacker Luke, Leo Rush, Matt Tremont, which was a phenomenal interview that you should check out. It was right when the pandemic really hit and a lot of indie wrestling started to shut down, or was shut down for a while. Really insightful interview to hear the Bulldozer Matt Tremont talk about that in independent wrestling. But yeah, I mean, last week, Headbanger Mosh, Chaz Warrington, awesome interview. He told us about beaver cleavage, which was a hell of a lot of fun. We had to mention it. He wore a shirt that had his
I know. But that's the one thing you bring up from the interview.
Right? Not the water balloon story.
Listen, there was a ton. Well, I don't want to give away all that stuff. All right,
that's true.
Called a hook, boys. You got to hook them in. Everybody always asks about the beaver cleavage thing. He said it himself, so we got to hook him in. Okay, but again, awesome interview tonight with the NWA current NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis. And we have Larry Zbyszko and Candice Michelle right around the corner over the next 2 weeks. I'll be honest, guys. I don't think we really have much to talk about from Raw last night. I think we could kind of just leave that
for me on Saturday.
What is it?
The announcement Elimination Chamber. Who's in it? The participants. Hey, this could change the whole landscape of WrestleMania plans depending what happens there. Because after last night, with the fact that Edge still hasn't formally announced who his opponent's going to be, we might get that Randy Orton Edge title match at WrestleMania after all. If Orton wins that Chamber,
I don't think there's any chance. You remember the Fiend still has to come back and get Randy Orton. I don't think they do that.
Triple threat.
If they're doing Orton Edge at Mania, triple threat. Oh God.
There we go. Triple threat.
Yeah.
One of these nights, I'm gonna put this kid in timeout.
Kid, how much older are you than me?
Who cares?
Listen, I'm older than both of you guys. I'm older than the NWA champ we just had on right now. Okay. So, guys, this was a blast. We gonna wrap it now. This was a blast. Make sure you guys stay tuned. The Fix and the PM. I think are they going tonight?
Yeah, they're going tonight.
All right. Fix and the PM going tonight. Jeff's going to do his show all about the birds. Right?
Yep. 9:15. So Eagles talk, come join the fun.
So lots of stuff going on. And I guess we can because he put it on Facebook, right? Congratulations to Dad,
absolutely,
and Lena, the Godfather, and his boss. They had a beautiful, healthy baby boy today, official. So Big Dad is finally actually dead.
He's actually dead.
But we want to say congratulations to them. Beautiful baby boy, him and Lena. I'm really excited for them. I'm sure if you're on our social media or anywhere else, you'll see posts of all that stuff. And, so he may or may not, he's going to be in and out at this point, guys. So I know you used to seeing Tom 5, 6, 7 shows a week. Probably going to be spotty over the next couple of weeks, but I'll let him make that determination and announcement. I know you're probably not going to see him for the next few days, at the least. But if you get a chance and you're friends with Tom on social media, why don't you shout him out, give him a shout out, throw him a congratulations. We're all very happy for him here, from our A2D family to the Big Dad and to his boss, Lena. So, that's going to do it for us this week, guys. Again, next week, Larry Zbyszko set back to our normal night, Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget the following week, Candice Michelle, former WWE Women's Champion. She'll be joining us, same thing, Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. on 223. Make sure you guys check out Andy and Butters this week in this very ring. They're going to bring you all the current professional wrestling talk. And
we're going to preview the NXT Massacre.
That was Vengeance Day.
I know, but it's going to be a massacre.
What? No Impact preview or spoilers Saturday night with for you?
Bite me. What'd you say, Crow?
All right. Enough, you two. Time to check your mouths. Time for this.
What did you say about guest on Lazy Booking?
When we get a guest on this show. No, I was saying, because when we get a guest on Lazy Booking, I usually don't feel like talking about the rest of the criteria. They give us so much information that there's nothing we're going to do after that's going to top it. So you know what? You go out on a high note. You go out on top. We want to make sure that we show love to our sponsors. And by the way, if you're over on YouTube, you're over on Facebook, you're anywhere else, and you haven't started following A2D Radio yet, get on there, click the link, follow the page, set your alerts, give us a like on any other social media platforms. Follow us on all major podcast platforms. We got shows every night. We got everything.
If you're not
professional wrestling.
subscribed by now, it's a problem.
You're right. It's a disgrace. But shout out to and love to our sponsors. First and foremost, guys, very tough times right now for a lot of people. Mental health, major issue in this country. Addiction issues, major issue in this country. There's not enough people that people feel like there's not enough support for them. They feel like they're a burden on the people, and you're not. You're important. You need to take care of yourself. And Andy already knows I say this all the time. It's taking care of yourself at home, inside, and also take care of each other. If you have any kind of addiction issues, any kind of mental health issues, we proudly support the Counseling Center and Sunrise Detox. They do amazing work there. Our buddy, family member here at A2D, Rob Lutman. You talk about a guy that can really speak firsthand and is doing amazing things in life now to reach out and provide that extra level of care that he had gotten at one point. Make sure you hit that phone number. Dial that number, 856-651-8117. They're wonderful people. They can help you, and they can help your loved ones out. Also, Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy, Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No appointment necessary. Make sure you guys hit up the doc. And as well as we have the GoFundMe that we're posting out here. The fire in the Ocean City Boardwalk a few weeks ago. Tons of businesses damaged. A lot of money, unfortunately, for these businesses, including one of our proud sponsors, All Campus OC. So we have a GoFundMe that's out there that we're putting out there for everybody. And if you can, guys, donate. If you can't, that's okay. We know that not everybody can do that, but please share the link. It's in our comment section. Share it out. Get it out there for people to see. The more people that see it, the more chances there are for people to drop, whatever they can into the bucket to try to help them out. So also, let's do Philly drinkers. Why not? We got a lot of, we'll do that in a second. I'll let you do that read, Andy, because I don't know that read for that. We got phillydrinkers.com, though, /pages /A2D-radio. Andy's got a shirt on right there.
Dude, I got a huge shipment from Alex. bunch of my karaoke people ordered In This Very Ring shirts. I got a blanket. I got the mug. I've got all your show shirts coming, you bum. So I've got a lot of stuff coming and going, and Alex has been great through this whole process.
This A2D merch, tumblers, shorts, freaking polos, hats, show shirts, Philadelphia themed shirts. Really fun stuff on there. Check them out. PhillyDrinkers.com/pages/A2D-radio. And hey, Body Check Wellness, guys. Andy, why don't you take care of my boys over here at Body Check?
So Body Check Wellness is a line of products that promote wellness, balance, and recovery by using the full potential of hemp. They come in extracts, blends, gummies, and topicals. Use promo code A2D for 20% off your order at bodycheckwellness.com. They also have going right now a promo. It's the THC-free wellness box. You save $150. It's only not $199. I did this on Saturday. It's only $119. You get gummies, you get the roll-on, you get the enhancement, all that fun stuff. Bodycheckwellness.com.
And hey, by the way, monthly, Riley Cote, former Philadelphia Flyer, he makes appearances on the Hockey Happy Hour on Thursday nights. So when he's on, they have a special package that they sell that typically I think retails for around $219.99, and you can get it for like $100 and.
Well, no. So anytime Riley's on, and the next time he's going to be on, it's going to be in March.
40% promo code.
Yeah, you get 40% off, and that THC Wellness is what they were running last week.
Right. Okay. So they have a product that they do. It's not your whole order. It's something specific that when they do that, you get your 40% off. So make sure you guys are paying attention. Again, that's another one of those. Set your alerts. You're going to know when Riley's going to be on the Hockey Happy Hour, so that if you're looking to get your products, and they have amazing products. You know when you can go on and put a couple bucks back in your pocket. So for myself, for Andy, for Jeff, for the entire family here at A2B Radio, for our guest, NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis, and for everybody else, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves, please, and each other. Have a good one.